I come in, sir?
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Bhavesh,
Yes, sir.
please have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
So, are you comfortable, Bhavesh?
Yes, sir.
Should we start?
Sure, sir.
So, Bhavesh, tell us about yourself.
Sir, I was born and brought up in my native village in Bhiwani district, and most of my later schooling I did from Hisar district. And then for my graduation, I went to Tata Institute of Social Sciences. So I believe that my outlook is informed from a rural, urban, as well as metropolitan perspective. I like to think that essentially I am a student, and that I have a thirst for knowledge and an orientation to utilize that knowledge in my day-to-day actions and decisions. And so recently I got selected in Haryana Civil Services. Yes, sir.
So, Bhavesh, very interesting to know that you continue to learn.
Yes.
You have studied in Tata Institute,
Yes, sir.
and Tata has played a key role in CSR activities. So, tell me some of the key achievements of Tata in CSR.
Yes, sir. Sir, in 2020, it donated, if I recollect correctly, about 150 crores to the government of India, to PM CARES Fund, to help fight the COVID pandemic. Besides, last year, Jamshedji Tata, the founder of Tata Group, was declared the biggest philanthropist of last century, having donated more than $100 billion. And so 66% of the Tata Group is owned by Tata Charitable Trust. The Tata family owns very little of the Tata Group. So these are the things that come.
So, tell me, CSR, is it not essentially a government job? Should government not spend this money, and why should industries be made to spend on CSR? What is your take on this?
Sir, we are all part of the society. The government is merely chosen by the society to govern it, but the people, the corporates, also take benefits out of the society. Sometimes they do not compensate for that. For example, the environment they pollute, and the people who purchase their products. All of those things, they exist, they continue within the society, so that the corporates are also responsible. Sure, the government is responsible to the people, but sometimes the government does not have enough financial resources, especially in a developing country like India, which has whose tax to GDP ratio is only 17%. So to fill in that gap, the corporates must step in, because after all their profits emanate from the society, so they owe it to the society as well to do something.
So, Shivam, again talking of Tata Group, they have acquired Air India,
Yes, sir.
and after that suddenly there is a transformation in performance of Air India. So, what is it that private sector does which government sector lacks?
So there are many things that the private sector does perhaps better than the government sector. For one thing, the private is completely immersed into the business, whereas the government, it also has many other functions to do. The second, the privates, they have the expertise in the field, because drawing from the first point, they are completely immersed into the activity. They are also not averse to hiring foreign individuals, hiring best talent. They promote more merit. And the fourth is that the private, they reward merit. They reward people who perform better, whereas in government services, the people, they have developed this mentality that once you get into the service, you are tenured for life and you cannot be removed. So they do not have the incentives to perform, whereas in private they do. So all these things, they make the private.
So, two issues. Number one, if given a chance, what reforms in administration would you like to propose? Second, as Chief Election Commissioner, what 3 reforms would you like to propose?
Sir, clarifying on the first question, in administration.
In administration,
Yes, sir.
what 3 reforms would you like to suggest? Bureaucracy.
Okay, sir.
You just now you mentioned of what is lacking in bureaucracy.
Yes, sir. Sir, can I have a moment to think about it? So the first would be, as I said, what the private sector does better is that it promotes merit. It promotes the people who do better. So promotions in the government service should be based on that, should be based on merit. That is the, and simultaneously weeding out the people who are not performing well. So second, there should be a culture in which the honest officials, they are rewarded. Right now, a sort of despondence has descended upon the civil services, in which the mentality is that those who are corrupt, who bow to political pressure, they are rewarded, and the honest officials, they are posted in some of the more hostile areas. So this mentality needs to make a U-turn. So rewarding the honest and dealing stringently with the ones who are not performing. This would be the second reform. Sir, and the third reform would be ensuring that the civil servants, they maintain the ethos of working behind the curtain. Recently,
Okay, fine. Now, election commission. As election commissioner,
yes, sir.
what 3 reforms would you like to propose in electoral process?
Yes, sir. So the first would be that the political parties be awarded a constitutional status, and at the same time their roles, responsibilities, all of them be delineated, especially concerning internal party politics. Many of the political parties, they have become hotspots of nepotism. So secondly, to curb criminalization of politics, there should be amendments in the Representation of People Act 1951 to ensure that the criminals, they do not get a space in the political arena. So third would be drawing from that only the money that flows into the political parties, especially after the electoral bonds scheme. So to curb that, perhaps partial funding of the elections can be done. That is something that has been prescribed by several committees like Dinesh Goswami committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bhavesh,
Yes.
as a student of social sciences
Yes.
from I think, one of the best institutes in the country, TIS, how do you see the society of Haryana? In the way it has been progressing in the last couple of years and future of Haryana society?
Sir, there are many aspects to Haryanvi society. On one hand, it continues to be patriarchal. Something that actually comes to mind of everyone who thinks about Haryana is the low sex ratio. Despite efforts like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, a lot is left to be desired, although progress has been made. That is something that has continued. Another aspect is that Haryana, I see that there is a new class of people emerging. In French, there is a concept of nouveau riche. Yes, sir, because the economy has boomed, especially after 1991 and Green Revolution. But the cultural ethos and the values and the education system, it has not developed commensurate to harness that money in human development. We are seeing because of that, there are problems like the drug menace is also coming in, as it did in Punjab. So that is a sort of a negative development. A positive development would be that the Haryana has performed better in Human Development Index. Newer avenues of education, especially the universities, are coming up. Recently, the Haryana government also brought out a scheme that there should be a medical university in each district. So the society is progressing towards that. Yes.
Now, can you tell me 5 social sector schemes implemented by Government of India which you think are doing very well, showing good results at the ground level?
Sir, can I have a moment to think about it? Sir, there is PM Awas Yojana. Sir, there is a Swachh Bharat Mission. There is Jal Jeevan Mission. There is MG Narega. And sir, Smart Cities Mission is also doing quite well.
Now, you were also involved in grievance redressal, some setup.
Yes.
Now, tell me, as district magistrate, how will you make use of technology for grievance redressal?
So first is understanding the grievances of the people, ensuring the first part of policy making is a collection of data. So harnessing technology to get feedback from the people what their grievances are. Secondly, the principle of Sarkar Aapke Dwar, I would use that to ensure that all the people have access to raising their grievances. Haryana has done a good job of it via CM window and Right to Services Act, which.
Now, you are one of your interests is dialectic, this thing of self.
Yes, sir.
Now, dialectic materialism. What do you understand by this?
Sir, dialectic materialism is a concept of Marx and Engels, though the word itself was not used by then. It was perhaps Georgy Plekhanov who used the word for it. But in the concept, what they say that the history of humanity is a history of dialectics, of conflict between the haves and the have-nots. And it is by that conflict that different modes of production evolve, which characterize a society. It started with primitive communism, then there was slave society, the Asiatic mode of production, that is basically a type of feudalism in Asia, then feudalism, then there is capitalism, and Marx and Engels say, because of the dialectic process, the Hegelian dialectics of a thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis which evolves from it, the evolution which evolves from it, because of the inherent contradictions in capitalism between the haves and have-nots, that will lead to communism.
Okay, my last question. Yes, I see you are very much involved in this blood donation thing.
Yes, sir.
You have blood transfusion thing also, you have done some. So tell me, which is the most common blood group out of the 4 blood groups? We have 4 major AB, B, O positive.
Yes, sir.
And which is the most common blood group?
So it actually differs by the region. In Europe, A positive is the most common.
In India?
In India, B positive is the most common, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Just have a look at that.
Yeah.
Yes, have a look at that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Bhawesh, international relation and political science is your optional.
Yes, sir.
Now, in this context, tell me, what is the issue in Eastern Ladakh with China?
Sir, in Eastern Ladakh, in the 1962 war, the Chinese, they captured the Xichin area. They say that it is a part of Tibet, and that is why we have a claim over it. It was also part of Mao's 5 fingers and a palm policy of Tibet. India, on the other hand, says that it is part of India. It was under the rule of J&K ruler Maharaja Hari Singh, and as he signed the instrument of accession, it should be part of India. In 2020, after the LAC had been calm till that time, but in 2020, the Chinese troops, they started marching on the Indian side, and they tried to make inroads in the Nubra Valley to make the Nubra River as a geographic boundary of the region. India also responded to that, and there have been claims from both the parties that the other side is escalating. So these are the concerns. Recently also, about 2-3 days back, I was reading in the newspaper, there was a meeting between the Defense Minister of India and China, the first one since the 2020 time, and the words and the tone which our Honorable Minister used, it shows that perhaps a resolution is not in the offing. Both the sides, they continue to point fingers at each other.
So what are the frictional area at present left to be resolved?
Sir, the hot springs area is one. Yes, sir. Sir, and the Nubra Valley area is the another. These are the 2 that come to me.
Nubra Valley area.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Recently, there were attack on Indian Army in Rajouri area. 5 Indian soldiers were killed.
Yes, sir.
The Indian government stated position is this, that the talks and terror cannot go together.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
But there are 2 regional parties in Kashmir, the National Conference and People's Democratic Party, PT.
Yes.
They say that Pakistan is a stakeholder in Kashmir. We have to talk to Pakistan. They say like this. What is your opinion in these 2 scenarios?
Sir, both the central government and both those parties, their principles do have they do have some truth to them. It is true that blood and water cannot flow together, as they said in the Indus water case. If we, on one hand, if we continue to engage with Pakistan, we cannot expect hostilities to continue in Kashmir, because then it is not politically feasible in a democratic country, and it is not also principally.
Bhawesh, what is there to talk to Pakistan in Kashmir? Tell me.
Sir, the Pakistanis, they continue to sponsor cross-border terrorism.
Okay, so we have to talk with them the cross-border terrorism, not anything else.
Sir, they continue to occupy POK, which is legitimately India's, and they, in international fora, they continue to undermine India's efforts to bring peace in the region. So all of these are supported by the Pakistani state. If we talk with them, if we make a discourse, even in the Pakistani public, that what they are doing is wrong, in the international public, as India has successfully done with the Financial Action Task Force to circumscribe Pakistan, all of these will then pressure Pakistan to take a more peaceful stand in the region. And at the same time, if India does not talk with Pakistan, perhaps the image that goes in the international community is that India is not willing to make progress in a hostile area. That is why, sir, I think.
But everywhere, India is not being criticized anywhere. After this cessation of talks with Pakistan, we have not been criticized. Rather, we have been given tacit support also.
Sir, I think that is a victory of Indian foreign policy and diplomacy, that even after abrogation of 370, we were not criticized anywhere. But still, the Arab world is one of India's major partners. And the fact that it is not saying anything bad, it is also not saying much good. It is staying silent. The good thing for us, we can always do better. So that is why if talks lead to some progressive results, perhaps that is right.
Do you know something about Roshni Act in Kashmir?
Sir, I have heard the term, but I cannot recollect what it is.
Okay. Thank you, Bhavesh.
Thank you, sir.
Bhavesh, a number of political parties, opposition parties, they have made a demand for caste-based census.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to hear your views on the matter, whether there is a need for going for caste-based census or not. If yes, why?
Ma'am, there are both sides to the story. There are some positives and some negatives. Bihar has also gone ahead with the caste-based census because it saw the positives, and the center has not because it
What
saw
are
the
your views? Don't
Yes.
narrate positives and negatives,
Yes.
we all know. I want to know your views on the matter.
Ma'am, data collection in every form is important. So census, that is why is important. Collection of caste data, it is also important because there we give different types of positive information based on caste. So collection of data will only refine policy making process. But at the same time, a lot of care has to be taken because it is a very delicate issue. The process, it has to be watertight. And in doing so, we have to ensure that politicization of the issue does not happen. For that, perhaps all party consensus with an all India political party meet can be done. And at the same time, the sensitive data should not be made public. Anything that the government and perhaps all the parties they deem can be misused.
Bhavesh, I am making a statement that same-sex marriage should be separated from special protection, Special Marriage Act. How do you corroborate on this?
Ma'am, Special Marriages Act, it gives the right to marry to individuals not out of the religious denominations. Marriage in India has been treated as a sacrament, so it comes under the purview of religion. When you say that it should be dealt separate from the Special Marriages Act, I see going ahead, that is how it should be. Because when we separate marriage and religion, we are taking something away from marriage, from the sanctity of the institution. But I see that as something that is far into the future. Right now, our society is not ready for it. Having said that, legitimization to same-sex union is a must. The Supreme Court has stated this, and perhaps not in the Special
What
Marriage
is the provision under Special Marriage Act which can be a constraint for same-sex married couples, which can create problem for the same-sex marriage, prospective couples?
Ma'am, it only deals with marriage between a man and a woman. That is the Special Measure Act 1954 says. So by definition, a marriage has to be between.
Is there something called notice period under Special Marriage Act if you want to get married under Special Marriage? What is the notice period and how does it affect the relationship, marriage prospects of same-sex couple?
Ma'am, I am not aware of the notice.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, Bhavesh, on Ukraine-Russia war, India seems to be in a catch-22 situation. Is there a need for course correction? You think India should change its course or it should continue the way it is going on? What is the future of India with regard to Ukraine-Russia war?
Ma'am, perhaps one might say that it is in a catch-22 situation because on one hand, we have been deepening our ties with the West, and many of our allies in the EU and the North America, they are pressuring us to take a stand. Ma'am, but I think what India has done is in keeping in consonance with India's strategic autonomy and India's policy of multi-alignment. Rather than course correction, I believe that there is a need for deepening what we have taken, the stand we have taken, that India is not going to side with either side. If in an already polarizing world, a neutral country which speaks for both sides, a neutral country like India takes a stand, then it only increases polarization further. It increases the prospects of a war and a Cold War 2.0.
Okay, Bhavesh, now, last question. You have been sports secretary in your college or somewhere?
In my school. Ma'am.
In my school. Now you are sports secretary of Haryana.
Okay.
And award prize-winning wrestlers are suffering for what is happening. And police is not registering FIR. What will you do? Immediately, what will you do? Before the situation becomes so, it becomes so tense, what will you do? What first measure will you take?
The first measure would be that the FIR should be lodged.
No, that police is not doing. So you are the sports secretary.
Okay, ma'am. The sports secretary is a senior IAS officer. So as a senior IAS officer, I can direct the IPS officer of that region. The seniority.
IPS doesn't report to you. He reports to the Home Ministry.
Ma'am, perhaps some informal channels.
Think about it. Okay, thank you.
So, Bhavesh,
Yes.
you are from Haryana.
Yes, sir.
So, Punjab and Haryana both wants Chandigarh to be its capital. What's your take on that?
Sir, it is a legacy issue and different committees have reported differently on it. Shah Commission, the Boundary Commission of Haryana, Punjab said give it to Haryana, but the Rajiv Longowal Awards said give it to Punjab. Going ahead, I see there are three options. One is that Haryana and Punjab, they formalize Chandigarh as their capital in perpetuity, declare it as a symbol of enduring fraternity between the two, of shared history. Second is hold a referendum in Chandigarh and ask the people of the UT which place you want to go to. So the third is that both Haryana and Punjab, they withdraw, they establish their different capitals, get a grant.
So, if Haryana were to have its own capital, which capital would you suggest and why?
Sir, actually I will draw from, I do not remember the committee that recommended it, but there is a place called Chol in Jind district, which is in the center of Haryana. I would recommend that because Haryana has very good finances. It is the state with the highest per capita income among the larger states. So I see it as an opportunity to develop a rather underdeveloped area for the investments to flow in there. I would suggest the Chol region in Jind.
But don't you think Panchkula would be much better since many administrative quarters are there?
Sir, there is a case for Panchkula to be made the capital as well. But if we are withdrawing, rather than going for something that will serve us in the short term, perhaps a place that is underdeveloped will serve us in the long run. That is in the center of Haryana, which will be more approachable by everyone.
Okay, Bhavesh. Independency and role of ED and CBI are in questions these days.
Yes.
So, what's your take on this matter?
Sir, in a democratic state, there needs to be checks and balances. Both the ED and CBI perform those functions. If questions are raised on their independence, then the state has something to introspect. Both these bodies, their independence is necessary for ensuring the trust of the people in the system for ensuring the legitimacy of our democratic government. Having said that, the state, the government, it also cannot give them too much autonomy to the point that they start playing an obstructionist role. So, to balance between these two, I think perhaps some more autonomy can be envisaged.
Moving to economy, where do you see Indian economy in 2030, both in terms of size and stature?
Sir, size and?
Stature.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have been, after COVID pandemic, we have made resounding recovery. IMF and World Bank, all the major agencies project India to be the fastest growing economy amidst a global slowdown. So in the short term, in the coming 2-3 years, the prospects are very bright. Contextualizing it in the geopolitics of the region, of in fact the entire world, a lot of the countries, especially the developed ones, are moving away from China. In an increasingly polarizing world, India offers them the space to get integrated into the supply chains of the world, to become the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. At the same time, we must also, while we are making this democratic transition towards manufacturing and becoming the manufacturing base of the world, we must also continue with the advances in services sector, and most importantly in the knowledge economy, especially with Industrial Revolution 4.0.
Okay, Bhavesh, you are also interested in taekwondo, cricket, kabaddi, basically in many sports, and you are from Haryana also.
Yes, sir.
So these days we have many leagues for badminton, for kabaddi, for hockey, for football. So shouldn't we focus more on such sports like athletics and other sports, swimming, athletics, where we can have more medals in Olympics in the long run?
Sir, sports, I think they are an end in themselves. Rather than going for the fact that we want more medals in Olympics as the only consideration, we should focus on building a sportsman spirit. Surely, winning more medals is desirable, but that should not be the only consideration going ahead. We should understand the culture that is developed in the region. For example, in my home district of Bhiwani, the boxing culture is developed. Because we promoted that, we saw that 2 boxers from Haryana won gold medal in the recent World Boxing Championship. The 2 girls, no less. So, all the efforts towards bettering the sports facilities are important, and so we have the largest population now, so we can win all the medals.
Okay, Bhavesh, my last question. Why do you wish to join civil services?
So the motivation came when I was doing my graduation. So ours was a multidisciplinary course in which we did subjects of all different kinds: history, sociology, political science. So I understood that problems, they exist at a systemic level. They are not pure strands of problems. There is no economic problem. It has social, political ramifications, environmental ramifications. To solve them at a systemic level is something that is best equipped to be done by a civil servant, because by definition they are generalists. So that is why to best solve the societal problems, I thought I would have the power to make changes at systemic level.
Okay, so thank you, Bhavesh. I pass on to Chairman, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So, Bhavesh, you have seen COVID times because you did your graduation around that time.
Yes, sir.
So, tell me 3 things that we learnt out of COVID times, and 3 things from which we can learn for future. 3 things that we did better, 3 things where we lagged and we need to improve.
Sir, can I think for a second? So the 3 things that we learned from the pandemic, the first one would be that if the human will is indomitable, we can surpass any adversity. We saw that in the rebound of the economy, people coming to the streets and the celebrations in many of the events, even after COVID had ended. So the way we celebrated Holi, Diwali, all these things after COVID. So the first is that our learnings about the human spirit. So the second thing that we learned is if as a state we go together, if we cooperate with one another, we can overcome adversity. We see that in many of the Western countries, the people, they protested against their own government. In India also there were some mild protests here and there, but overall, rather than taking an obstructionist approach, we understood each other and we went ahead with the recovery faster than everybody else. Sir, the third thing is that going ahead, we need to focus on science and technology. We saw that the economy, it recovered because of the Zoom meetings and work from home culture, all the things that were enabled by technology. So going ahead, we are going to face many problems as humanity grows, be it the climate change or be it other pandemics. So we need to focus on science. So the three things where we lagged behind. One was we did not take care of the migrants, the most downtrodden. Of course, we came up with things like distribution of free grains, but they were abandoned after the injury had been made. So perhaps some preemptive action to that regard should have been taken. The second is there must be preparedness. The act that we used to deal with the problem was a 19th century act, the Epidemics Act of 1890s, I guess. So we should, the policy think tanks, they should envisage such problems that can come ahead, and adequate laws and policies should already be in place to handle such problems. So the third place where we lagged behind was perhaps the misinformation. All the things that were spreading like wildfire on social media, on WhatsApp, the people giving in to the rumors and rumor mongering. So that is something that as a society going ahead, we must understand, we must tackle misinformation and the post-truth world. So these are the things.
Good, Bhavesh. So with this, we come to a close of our mock. You can wait outside, we will call you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Come.
Thank you, sir.
So you will celebrate your birthday and then appear for the interview.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, Bhavesh, how you think you have done?
Sir, I think overall it was fine, but my answers tend to be a bit long and I tend to give into verbosity a bit.
Bhavesh, well, you are being conservative. You were very good.
Thank you, sir.
One of the best that we have seen. Today you were the best.
Thank you, sir.
So just keep it up. I don't have very many points to tell you. Good personality, good communication, good confidence, a positive approach, good smile on your face. Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Just keep it up. All the way you addressed last question brought out your personality in complete bloom.
Thank you, sir.
So how you think, how you analyze, and it was not longish because the question itself involved three things. You could have, yes, 2 minutes is the outer limit. Try and cut short up to that time period.
Okay, sir.
Bhavesh, your introduction was very long. You
Okay,
have to
sir.
be very brief.
Okay, sir.
You added so many dimensions to introduction. Introduction means simply your name. You come from Haryana, so and so district of Haryana,
Sir.
and you have done graduation, or you're from TIST. And then presently, sir, on the basis of exam of this thing, yes, I was selected as Haryana Civil Service Officer, and my hobbies are so and so. That's all.
Okay, sir.
Nothing more than that.
Okay, sir.
Second, when you are not 100% sure about something, so don't be so confident. You are,
Sir, in India it is O positive. I remembered in Asia it is B positive.
yeah, in
Yes,
India
sir.
it is O positive.
Yes,
Rather
sir.
B positive, it is O positive.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then third thing is when you entered, it is a small thing, but again, body language also it is a part of your personality. Both your hands were on your back.
Okay, sir.
आप वीडियो में देखे ना, आप जब अंडर कर रहे थे ना, तो पहले एक हाथ अंदर था, फिर दूसरा हाथ अंदर ले गए. So that was not the, I think, right. नॉर्मल ढंग से आइए ना, आप दोनों हाथ, आपके दोनों हाथ पीछे की तरफ थे जब आप एंटर किए ना रूम में.
Okay, sir.
तो वो इट इज नॉट ए नॉर्मल वे ऑफ यू सी. जस्ट आप नॉर्मल ढंग से आइए, आप कैसे चल के आते हैं, दैट्स ऑल.
ठीक है, सर.
तो टाई का थोड़ा नोट वगैरह जैसे आज तो आपका ठीक नहीं, उस दिन ध्यान कर लीजिएगा. टाई का जो पीछे से भी सब कम नजर आ रहा है, कोट वगैरह आप लगाइएगा अच्छे से. तो दिस स्मॉल थिंग्स बट दीज आर पार्ट ऑफ योर पर्सनैलिटी.
जी, सर.
So don't take these things very casually.
Okay, sir.
All the best. You are excellent candidate, no doubt about it. I'm
Thank
sure
you,
you will do well.
Thank you, sir.
Bhavesh, same. You are very excellent. You have done very, very well.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, all the questions, balanced way. everything is. I mean, you are very good. I don't have anything to comment upon in any way. I mean, it's very, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I am really impressed with your answers.
Thank you, sir.
All the best.
Bhavesh, youngest and best since morning. So you've done really well. But I'll tell you the answer of both the questions. As sports secretary, you should have immediately spoken to your counterpart, home secretary. That was the first step instead of talking to the police. Am I right?
Yes.
So I found you wanting sometimes in situational questions. Similarly, Special Marriage Act, you don't know. It provides a notice period of 30 days. उस 30 days में फैमिली वाले और ये जो विजिलेंटेज और एक्टिविस्ट है वो इंटरफेयर करके डिस्टर्ब करते हैं. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज फेल्ट द नीड ऑफ कीपिंग स्पेशल मैरिज एक्ट अवे फ्रॉम सेम सेक्स मैरिज कपल्स
Okay.
to provide them security as a social welfare measure for them. So this was the answer to the question. All right.
Okay.
So I was again and again asking you immediate measure. What will you take as a sports secretary?
That just did not click.
No,
in my head.
it doesn't matter. You are not supposed to be knowing everything. But I'm just telling you in case something like this comes. Otherwise, you were excellent. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So, Bhavesh, same opinion here. पर्सनालिटी, कॉन्फिडेंस, कम्युनिकेशन सब अच्छा था. एज फॉर स्मॉल इम्प्रूवमेंट्स, आपने वो रेफरल केस में एफआईआर के बारे में बोला. आज ऑलरेडी 2 एफआईआर फाइल हो चुकी है.
Yes, sir.
वो आपने शायद पढ़ा नहीं होगा सुबह न्यूज़पेपर में.
सर मैंने पढ़ा पर मैम का क्वेश्चन थोड़ा
अच्छा, वैसे
सिचुएशनल
था
लगा.
कि उस वे में आपने बोला. फिर ठीक है, हाँ, इमीडिएटली कर देना चाहिए था. ठीक
मैंने
है.
कहा था कि अगर एफआईआर फाइल नहीं कर रहे
नहीं
तो
कर
आप
रहे
क्या
थे.
करो.
अच्छा, ठीक है, ठीक है. तो गुड देन. दूसरा 2 क्वेश्चंस में, जैसे चंडीगढ़ इशू में जब आ गए थे, आप आ गए थे ना, उसमें कुछ ज्यादा ही आपने टाइम ले लिया.
Okay, sir.
और लास्ट वाले क्वेश्चन में भी आंसर दोनों बहुत अच्छे थे,
Yes, sir.
पर एनालाइज करने में थोड़ा सा ना आप ज्यादा लंबा चले गए हैं. तो
Okay, sir.
उसी को अगर आप थोड़ा क्रिस्प कर पाओ तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा. हुआ क्या, 2-3 और क्वेश्चंस थे पूछने के लिए, बट टाइम लिमिट खत्म हो गई है. हाँ, तो जिस क्वेश्चन में आपको लग रहा है जहां ज्यादा लॉन्गेज डाल रहे हो ना, 4 पॉइंट बोल रहे हो, 5 बोल रहे हो, वहां पे आप 3 में आ जाओ.
ठीक है सर.
वो अच्छा रहेगा. या अगर आप पॉइंट बोल रहे हो ना, एक्सप्लेन मत करो फर्स्टली, सेकेंडली, थर्डली, क्योंकि उनको अगर पूछना होगा ना, वो फिर सप्लीमेंट्री क्वेश्चन पूछ लेंगे. फिर आप एक्सप्लेन करो, इससे ना टाइम बच जाएगा थोड़ा सा.
ओके सर.
ठीक है. अदरवाइज यू आर वेरी गुड, कीप इट अप.
थैंक यू.
कोट आप पहन के जाएंगे डेफिनेटली.
जी सर, यही पूछना था गर्मी वगैरह के
देखो
हिसाब
उसमें क्या होगा कि जो सभी कैंडिडेट होंगे ना, वो कोट पहन के जाएंगे. आप ऑड वन आउट लगोगे.
से. ओके
अरे यार ये कौन है ना. और एक फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ सिविल सर्वेंट में अगर आप आ जाओगे तो अच्छा रहेगा. सो इट इज प्रेफरेबल कि आप पहन के ही जाओ, वरना ऑड वन आउट लग जाओगे बेकार में.
और फिर सब कुछ एयर कंडीशन है. यू विल नॉट फील
like a dress code. You take it as a dress code.
ड्रेस कोड है,
हाँ,
प्रोटोकॉल है.
हाँ, शादी में जाते हैं लिखा नहीं तो ड्रेस कोड ये है, या किसी फंक्शन में जाते तो ड्रेस कोड. अभी यू कांट हेल्प इट. अब आप जब भी सिविल सर्वेंट बनने के बाद अगर प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया से मिलने जाओगे, चाहे आप उनको जैसलमेर में भी रिसीव करोगे, अगर जैसलमेर करेक्टर होके, आपको बंद गले का कोट पहनना पड़ेगा. यू कांट से कि गर्मी है यहाँ पर मैं बंद गले का कोट कैसे पहनूं.
ओके सर.
ठीक है ना. वो ड्रेस कोड है. जब प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया के सामने जाता है कोई सिविल सर्वेंट, इट हैज टू बी बंद गला कोट.
सर तो दैट इज अनदर क्वेश्चन. बंद गले का पहन जाऊं सर, समथिंग
ड्रेस कोड अलग है. अभी जो आपका नॉर्मल कोट टाई है, इट इज लाइक ए ड्रेस कोड. लोग ऐसा नहीं कि नहीं पहन के जाते.
फॉर्मल कोट है.
नॉर्मल कोट पहन के टाई लगा के जाइए ना. बंद गले का नहीं बात कर रहा हूं.
अच्छा.
अभी बंद गले का नहीं है. बंद गले का मैं बोल रहा हूँ जब सिविल सर्वेंट बन जाएंगे तब की बात कर रहा हूँ. तब आपको प्रेसिडेंट वगैरह से मिलने जाना होता है तो बंद गले का कोट पहनना पड़ता है.
और आपको क्या गर्मी
मसूरी के
लगेगी
लिए रखो.
45 मिनट में सुबह से रात तक ये देखो कोट पहन के बैठना. सुबह बैठते हैं.
वो मसूरी के लिए रखो बंद गले का. अच्छा ये मतलब ये आपका सेकंड अटेम्प्ट था.
यस सर.
पहला इंटरव्यू है ये.
यस सर.
तो आज हमने आपको 71% दिया.
That means 196 marks.
थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू.
सो कीप इट अप.
थैंक यू सर.
खूब मेहनत करते रहो. यू आर रेडी.
ईस्टर्न लद्दाख में ना जो भैया वो मेन जो है डेप्सांग प्लेन्स, उसको याद कर लेना. वो 3 पॉइंट है. एक तो डेप्सांग प्लेन मेन झगड़ा है हमारा. अभी झगड़ा हमारा मेन डेप्सांग प्लेन में. ठीक है.
यस सर.
उसके अलावा एक गोगरा स्पॉट या वो है मेरे को 2 और हैं उसमें, बट मेन डेप्सांग है. काफी एरिया में बैठा हुआ है. इट्स अ प्लेन एरिया, वहाँ पे बैठा हुआ है. तो वो वही झगड़ा है हमें. ठीक है. वो याद कर लेना. उसको बहुत जरूरी है.
भावेश, मुझे ऐसा लगता है आपसे सिचुएशनल क्वेश्चंस जरा ज्यादा पूछेंगे क्योंकि यू आर लुकिंग ए प्रोस्पेक्टिव सक्सेसफुल कैंडिडेट. तो आप जो भी इश्यूज चल रहे हैं ना प्रॉब्लमेटिक, उसके अंदर अपने को रखकर सोचो,
ठीक है,
ये जरूर कर लेना आप, ठीक है?
चलो भावेश, विश यू ऑल।
I just have one question, sir. Sir, I have not filled Haryana as my preferred cadre, the first choice. If should I say that I'm already an HCS officer because the two are contradictory?
If you see, you have not filled it up in
होम
depth.
स्टेट हरियाणा नहीं दिया ना आपने?
नहीं सर, होम स्टेट हरियाणा दिया पर मैंने केडर नहीं भरा हरियाणा का केडर।
अच्छा तो है, कहीं भी सर्व करो, ऑल इंडिया सर्विस में है। अगर वो पूछेंगे साहब बोलना हर दिन कहीं भी करने को
नहीं,
तैयार
वैसे वो ये क्वेश्चन पूछा नहीं जाता है, डोंट
कोई नहीं
वरी।
पूछेगा।
नहीं,
Should I
क्योंकि
tell
लिखा
that?
नहीं है ना, डेप में लिखा नहीं है।
नहीं,
आप
इनका
द क्वेश्चन
question
इज
ये
कि
है कि क्या
इंट्रोडक्शन में
बता
क्या
दें
उनको
हम?
हरियाणा के बारे में बोलना
बताना
चाहिए,
चाहिए।
एचसीएस के बारे में नहीं बोलना।
Yes sir, that is my question.
इट इज वन ऑफ द गुड अचीवमेंट।
और क्या बताना
SCS को
चाहिए?
बोलिए आप।
और इस एज में ही, यंग एज में ही
SCS
आपने
वालों को
क्लियर
बोलिए।
किया है,
बिल्कुल।
इट्स अ पॉजिटिव साइन ऑफ पर्सनालिटी। ज्यादा क्या होगा, हरियाणा पे ज्यादा क्वेश्चन,
हरियाणा
अच्छी
तो
बात
ज्यादा
है।
पूछेंगे।
एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे
आपको
पूछ लेंगे
होम स्टेट
थोड़ा
है ही।
सा, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पे थोड़ा पूछ लेंगे, तैयार कर लो,
जी सर।
और अच्छा है।
Bhavesh, it immediately changes the perception of the board.
यस यस,
Because
Immediately उनको लगेगा
it's a
ना कि
big
you are a civil
achievement, you
service
should not
material.
hide it.
मैसेज वुड बी लाउड एंड क्लियर कि यू आर ए सिविल सर्विस मटेरियल। सिर्फ एक जंप आप एक सीढ़ी और चढ़नी है, दैट्स ऑल, यू विल बी सिविल सर्विस आईसीएस मतलब आईएएस।
तो बोर्ड का परसेप्शन चेंज हो जाता है, बताना
बिल्कुल
चाहिए
जाएगा
आपको।
पक्का।
Okay,
ठीक है
thank
ना?
you. Thank you.
इसमें हरियाणा के बारे में बहुत पढ़ना पड़ेगा।
ठीक है सर,
SCS में पढ़ी लिया
तो
उसने।
हरियाणा तैयारी तो है
आपकी
ही।
तैयारी
SCS में
पूरी
पढ़ाई
आपकी
होगा।
हाँ जी सर।
फुल तैयारी है आपकी, डोंट वरी, ऑल द बेस्ट।
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
ओके, ऑल द बेस्ट।
All
All
the
the
best.
best.